and I don't have to do a silly band assisted Bosu ball, whatever, pink dumbbells. I can just do bench press and work on that way. Hi, it's Andy. So, first thing today I want to say is that yes, Dr. Andy, I have a PhD, I'm a physicist, I study space plasmas. I'm not a physician. So, these are my experiences, but do not take this as medical advice. What I'd like to talk about is my shoulder. My left shoulder has some issues. Right here, it might be a little bit hard to see, but in the AC joint, the acromioclavicular joint, I have been having some pain. I actually had it the first time about 15 years ago. And just as a contrast, you can see I don't have a bump on my right side. This one's normal. This one has a little bit of a bump. My doctor at the time told me was an AC separation. Usually you'd remember that as like a traumatic event, but I never had the traumatic event that I can remember. But I did have to the point where anytime I tried to bench press over about 185 pounds, my shoulder would hurt. And eventually it got so that push ups hurt. The doctor wanted to give me a cortisone shot. I didn't really see that that would help anything, so I didn't get it. I didn't have any weightlifting kinds of goals, so I stopped bench pressing. The pain went away. Voila. Um, Granted, I was benching kind of bro style at the time with a flat back, touch and go, not really bouncing it off the chest, but kind of like this. And then when I started lifting again, just a few years ago, right around when the gyms all closed in 2020, I found out about the powerlifting arch, retracting and depressing the scapulae so that I'm benching with my chest and not the anterior adults. Well, that and widening my grip put a lot more strain into the chest muscles and out of the joint. It made it very possible for me to bench press without any pain. Unfortunately, that pain came back a couple months ago. I had actually just started a new program with more pressing than I was used to. Textbook overuse case. You start pressing more, and a couple weeks later, something starts hurting. Gee, I wonder why. Well, I happened to have a doctor appointment at the time anyway. Nurse practitioner, but she is a physician. Very good. She said, let's get the thing imaged. It's something that you had before and it came back. Let's find out if it's due to some sort of structural problem. And I said, sure. I'd like to know if I have some sort of problem that's going to keep getting worse as we go. So I got an MRI, and here are the results. Okay, so first things that they noticed was minimal degenerative change of the acromioclavicular joint. And that is actually related to this moderate-sized subcortical cyst. I'll show what that is in a moment. Next thing is minimal supraspinatus and infraspinatus tendinosis. So these two tendons are two of the four rotator cuff tendons. So this just shows that there is an issue with my tendons. Tendinosis, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment, but it's not quite the same as tendinitis. So no tears, but my tendons have issues. Degenerative change of the AC joint. So subcortical cyst is apparently related to osteoarthritis. So my AC joint is a bit worn down and has a bit of arthritis. So the next thing we decided to do was send me over to an orthopedic specialist to look at my shoulder some more. And after all the x-rays, he said, Well, the x-rays only showed that I have a type 2 acromion. That's type 1 is normal, type 2 means you're a little bit more likely to get injured, like me. Type 3 is really bad. um, X-rays didn't really show a whole lot, but when we looked through the MRI, the doctor said that it looked a little bit arthritic. Not really a huge deal, but I'd probably need to go back at some point to get that. I don't even know, do something about it. He couldn't really tell me anything about the tendons either, except that. Uh, so the tendinosis is not exactly the same thing as tendinitis, even though they're very similar. So the terms, I had to go scour the internet for this. The general term is tendinopathy. That just describes any problem with any tendon. You can break that down into tendinitis, which is an acute, shorter term inflammation, and tendinosis, which is a little bit more of a chronic, degenerative kind of issue. If you just do something that upsets your tendon for a few days, that's tendinitis. It makes sense to rest it, to ice it, to use vitamin I, as I like to call it, ibuprofen. And tendinosis is a little bit different because it is chronic and degenerative. Those treatments will make it feel better briefly, but you're not actually going to fix the problem. The actual treatment of it involves using the tendon, getting the blood flowing to the tendon. Instead of ice, maybe you want to use heat. So the orthopedic doctor was not really able to talk to me about tendinitis versus tendinosis. I think he just didn't really want to. But he did point out that right along, I'm not going to channel my inner athlete next, but I'll draw a line here anyway. He did feel through here that my biceps tendon was also a little bit irritated. So that's good to know because that is a little bit of a stabilizer tendon for the shoulder also. So I have some tendon issues with my shoulder. That's the summary. And if you know me very well, you'll know that as soon as I saw these diagnoses, I went and scoured the internet and found what I could about the different issues. Um, with the rotator cuff tendons, yeah, the the stuff I was finding was definitely not aimed at me. You could see like these scrawny guys who obviously don't lift, showing things you can do with bands or soup cans or 3 pound pink dumbbells. Um, that's not gonna help me. Um, just today, I was bench pressing 135 pounds without any trouble, and 185 did actually hurt a little bit, so I just brought it right back down. That's more what you want to do when you're rehabbing this kind of injury when it's minimal. Everybody seemed to agree that overhead movements are off the table for now. 100% agree, those are hurting for me. Those were what started up first. Every time I push my hand up over my head, well, with weight, I can feel the grinding right in here. It feels like the tendons are kind of rubbing against each other. It got to the point where when I would just raise my arm up doing lateral raises, it was doing the same thing. And again, when I'm doing bench press, I feel like something is shifting a little bit. It doesn't really hurt while I'm doing it, but it hurts later and the next day. I can even get a little bit of tingling in my fingers. So there's probably a nerve getting pinched in there somewhere too. I think that will be a lot better when things are less inflamed because it hasn't been an issue until recently. Okay, so a couple of sources that actually were helpful for me mentioned that doing seated rows would actually probably be a good exercise for me. Another good one, because when I'm doing bicep curls, those get a little bit of my front delt involved. I can do a preacher curl, or my coach suggested doing a strict curl with my back up against the wall, and that seems to be okay so far also. Um, as far as returning to the bench press, well, it seems that these tendons don't like being stretched either. So I am gonna have to keep doing it, but be a little bit more careful with that. My plan is I'm going to keep doing the tempo bench press for sure. That's today I was doing that with 135, feeling completely okay, and the tendons seem to really like that slow eccentric, letting the bar down slowly. The other variation I'm going to do is the spoto press, where you actually stop a few inches off your chest. And that one I should be able to load up a little bit more because I'm not getting as deep of a stretch in my tendons and in my chest. So I'll keep doing that. I'll keep stretching out my lats pretty well. Those apparently actually do pull your shoulder down and forward, not just pull weight down. So I already figured out I'm going to start with 135 for the tempo bench. I should be able to do more for the spoto. I'll try that later this week and see if I like 185 pounds. Just go up 5 pounds every week. I'm going to completely skip my top sets because I usually do a top set and then lower weight back off sets for more reps. And I think I'm just going to do 2 days a week of benching for the moment. Normally I do 3. Um, if it's like my knees have been, just getting the stimulus, giving it a few days to recover, like 2 or 3, usually about 3 days is about what they need to recover, then that should be the stimulus it needs to heal. Okay, a couple other things I'm going to do is I'm going to be working on my bench press arch because it seems like the more of an arch I get, the better it feels, the better that angle is, the better that I get the chest engaged rather than the shoulders, and the better the joint feels. So here's a clip of me attempting to foam roll my back to work on the arch. It really does help. It's just, it looks silly in a baggy t-shirt. It's easier in a more form-fitting kind of shirt. And actually, the form-fitting shirts help my joint warm up faster, so I'm probably going to wear those for the time being also. A couple other things that I'm going to be also using in my warm-up are these band pull-aparts. They seem like they just get a little bit more blood flowing to the shoulder. Some people seemed to suggest that for the rotator cuff issues. They don't hurt, so hey, might as well. The band external rotation also seems to feel okay, so I will just do that for a little while. The last thing I'm going to do is these rear delt flies. They work exactly the opposite motion in the shoulders of what the biceps tendon would be doing. The bicep tendon wants to pull your shoulders forward, the rear delts want to pull your shoulders apart. So I'm going to use those, get a good balance. I'm going to do those bench press variations I mentioned and slowly add 5 pounds a week until I get to the point where I have to slow down for whatever reason or until my shoulders feel better. But either way, this taking the weight off, slowly adding it back in as things heal. That's what's worked with me for my knees. It should work for my tendons. That's what everything I've been able to find indicates. And I don't have to do a silly band assisted Bosu ball, whatever, pink dumbbells. I can just do bench press and work on that way. Slowly, I'm going to add overhead movements back in as it starts to feel better. I should be able to go full speed again. 3 months, 4 months, I don't know. We'll find out. I should be good to go for a meet this fall anyway. So for those of you who made it to the end, thank you for staying here. Comment if you have had any issues or if you just want to cheer me on. Hit like. And again, thanks for listening to me ramble about my injuries. I know it may not be too exciting to listen to me talk about injuries, but this is stuff I have to work with and overcome if I'm going to actually get to these state records that I'm aiming for. Thank you.